Do I contradict myself? Very well then, I contradict myself. I am large, I contain multitudes. This quote from Walt Whitman's poem, Song of Myself, raises an essential question to the work as a whole. Is one thing ever really just one thing, or does it consist of several smaller components which make it a larger phenomenon? Like the grass, a term that insinuates singularity, but it cannot exist without its millions of leaves. The leaves grow separately and develop into what we know to be grass. Or like the great whale, containing the structure and other biological constituents that make it to be a marine mammal. This quote, therefore, is not limited to Whitman's poem. It also pertains to Herman Melville's novel, Moby Dick. Both Whitman and Melville seem to struggle with this notion. These two authors attempt to distinguish individuality from duality, but they must first decide which aspect trumps the other. To answer this question, democracy is at stake in Song of Myself. The famous poem begins with these lines: I celebrate myself and sing myself, and what I assume you shall assume, for every atom belonging to me as good belongs to you. Is Whitman actually declaring himself as an individual, or is he insinuating that he only exists through duality? In this sense, Whitman praises democracy as this political idea stands for all the people rather than one single person. Democracy, therefore, becomes the microcosm for the question that Whitman wants to answer. Later in the poem, a child asks Whitman, "What is the grass?" Whitman struggles to define the grass, but later mentions some of the many different things he identifies with. He quotes, I am of old and young, of the foolish as much as the wise, maternal as well as paternal, a child as well as a man, a southerner soon as a northerner. If this is so, then is he really celebrating individuality? Or, as Michael Moon argues, is he demonstrating, quote, the complex fluidity of identity? Democracy functions for the people rather than one specific person, just as grass contains separate but inseparable leaves. Therefore, Whitman's contradicting argument demonstrates that maybe individuality and duality are dependent on one another. Melville also struggles with this contradicting idea in his novel Moby Dick. Instead of asking, what is grass, Melville seems to be asking, what is a whale? Whales are thought as individual creatures, as Whitman is thought to be an individual man. But whales also contain multitudes, and they all have specific functions. Moreover, the whale is not perceived equally among the characters in the novel. For example, Ahab tells the whale, "Speak, mighty head, and tell us the secret that is in thee." He makes it seem like the whale is a single godlike being. On the other hand, Ishmael questions the wholeness of the whale and wonders if it is a dual being rather than an individual being. The whale is dissected through the chapters, but Ishmael is unsure if all this equals the wholeness of the whale. The characters are looking at the same thing, but there is not one agreeable definition for what the whale actually is. Does this mean it is dual and not individual? Both these works may not actually be about grass and whaling after all. However, Whitman and Melville are surely seeking an answer to the same question. Whitman admits the contradiction, and Melville seems to imply a similar response. Is one notion not greater than the other? Probably not. Regardless, both Song of Myself and Moby Dick demonstrate that duality and individuality may seem separate, but really are equal and indivisible.